They thought digging into your past would be the final blow. They thought all it would take was one file, one investigation, one so-called professional, with access to the shadows of your life. They hired the private investigator, the one who never leaves a trail, the one who is paid to uncover what others spend their lives trying to bury. And he came prepared. Documents, contacts, secret databases, a Rolodex of names willing to sell out anyone for the right price. He expected you to be like everyone else, just another name on his list, just another life with skeletons waiting to tumble out of the closet. That's how it usually goes. Dig deep enough, and everyone has something to hide. So he dug. He dug through public records, through sealed files, through whispers passed in back alley bars. He scrolled through years of phone logs, traced old bank accounts, pieced together fragments of your digital shadow. He talked to people who knew you once, people who swore they could sell him a story. He searched for the smoking gun, the dark stain, the crack in the mask that would finally prove you were just another fraud, dressed up as something more. Every hour he spent, he was certain he was getting closer. Every lead he followed, he was convinced the dirt was waiting just beyond the next page. But then something strange happened. The deeper he dug, the more unsettled he became. Because the dirt file he built on you wasn't a file at all. It was a mirror, one that kept reflecting back his own fear. Page after page, the same question screamed at him in silence. How? How did you come out untouched when life should have destroyed you? How did you survive storms that break entire bloodlines? How did you walk through fire and come out without a single burn mark? Resilience. The file was supposed to expose you, but instead it exposed the impossible. It became less of an investigation and more of a confession, his own handwriting shaking on the page, as he tried to explain something he could never put into words. He expected scandal, secrets, shame. What he found instead was a trail of resilience so unexplainable that it terrified him. Not just resilience, something divine, something that made no sense on paper, something that shouldn't exist. And yet there you were, living proof of it. By the time he closed that file, he wasn't just frustrated, he was rattled. This wasn't the story he wanted to write. This wasn't the ending he promised to the ones who hired him. Because instead of a neatly packaged scandal to tear you down, he had nothing but 100 pages of questions, 100 pages of impossibility, 100 pages that screamed louder than any secret ever could. You are untouchable. And that was the real dirt he uncovered. Not weakness, not scandal, but the terrifying truth that there is no dirt on someone chosen by God. Every chosen one, no matter how radiant their calling, must pass through the furnace of trials and tests. This is not punishment. It is refinement. It is the process through which the raw material of your destiny is forged into something unshakable, immovable, and indestructible. Trials. When you first hear the whisper of your calling, when the veil lifts, and you realize that you were not created to live an ordinary life, something begins to shift in the unseen. Suddenly, the very ground you walk on seems to resist you, the air feels heavier, and life begins to throw at you storms you never thought you could endure. This is because the moment you step into awareness of who you are, the forces of resistance also awaken. Understand this: every great soul is tested, not because they are weak, but because they are strong. The trials you face are evidence of your assignment. Just as fire does not waste itself on straw, but reserves its intensity for gold, the universe does not waste deep trials on empty vessels. You are tried because you carry weight. You are tested because within you lies something that cannot be broken by ordinary means. Trials come in many forms. For some it is the crushing weight of financial hardship, where every day feels like a battle, just to survive. For others, it is the pain of betrayal, when those you trusted most turn their backs and sell your name for the cheapest price. Some are tested by isolation, forced into wilderness seasons where their voice echoes into silence, and not a single soul seems to understand them. Others are tested in the realm of health, their bodies carrying burdens that push them to the edge of despair. Each test feels like a unique form of suffering, yet in truth, they are all variations of the same divine process, stripping away illusions and solidifying the truth of who you are. Training grounds. Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, thrown into prison for a crime he did not commit. His trials were not random misfortunes, they were training grounds. Without betrayal, he would not have learned forgiveness. Without slavery, he would not have understood leadership. Without prison, he would not have developed patience. Every trial was chiseling away at his character, preparing him to carry the weight of being second in command to Pharaoh. The same applies to you. Your trials are not obstacles, but classrooms. You are being trained in ways you cannot yet see, and here's the painful truth. The tests are never designed to be comfortable. Comfort does not produce growth. Pressure does. You will often cry out to God, asking, "Why me? Why this? Why now?" And the heavens may remain silent, not because God does not hear you, but because the silence itself is the test. Will you still trust when there is no evidence? Will you still move when the path is dark? Will you still stand when everything inside of you screams to run? This is where the chosen are separated from the crowd. Many can walk in faith when the waters are calm, but chosen ones must learn to walk even when the storm rages, when the waves crash, and when there seems to be no shore in sight. Faith in the absence of proof, that is the heart of the trial. You will notice that these tests often strike at your deepest insecurities. If you fear abandonment, you will be left alone. If you fear rejection, you will be rejected. If you fear lack, you will go through seasons of scarcity. Why? Because the only way to master fear is to confront it. The trials bring you face to face with the very shadows you wish to avoid, forcing you to realize that what you thought could destroy you cannot actually touch the core of who you are. It hurts, but it liberates. By the time you emerge, rejection no longer controls you, scarcity no longer terrifies you, and abandonment no longer defines you. There is also a spiritual law at work here. The greater the destiny, the greater the testing. Diamonds are not formed in gentle environments. They are birthed under pressure so intense that lesser substances would shatter. If you feel like your life has been one endless cycle of crushing, do not assume it means you are cursed. It may be the clearest sign that you are a diamond in the making. But here is the part many overlook. Trials are not only external, they are internal. Yes, you will battle with financial strain, betrayal, loneliness, and sickness. The test, but the fiercest battle is within your own mind and spirit. The test is whether you can master your inner world when the outer world is collapsing. Can you quiet the voice of doubt that tells you you're not enough? Can you silence the whisper of fear that insists you will fail? Can you overcome the temptation to compromise, to settle for less than your divine calling, simply because the path of destiny feels too heavy to bear? It is during these internal trials that you begin to discover your true strength. You realize that peace is not found in external circumstances, but within. You understand that joy is not stolen by hardship unless you hand it over. You begin to see that your spirit, anchored in divine purpose, cannot be shaken by anything the world throws your way. This is the secret power of chosen ones. Not that they avoid trials, but that they learn to remain unshaken in the midst of them. And as you endure, something remarkable happens. You begin to change. Trials that once would have broken you no longer faze you. Words that once would have wounded you deeply now glance off your spirit like arrows against armor. Situations that once caused sleepless nights now barely trouble your peace. You become unrecognizable, even to yourself. What once triggered you no longer controls you. What once intimidated you no longer frightens you. This transformation is not accidental. It is the very purpose of the tests. But do not mistake survival for completion. Passing through trials is not about merely enduring until they are over. It is about allowing them to refine you, to strip away the old layers of fear, pride, doubt, and insecurity, so that your true essence emerges. Each test is not just a storm to survive, it is a sacred fire to purify. So when you find yourself in the midst of trials, remember this: you are not being destroyed, you are being built. Every tear is watering the soil of your future harvest. Every setback is setting the stage for a greater comeback. Every wound is carving depth into your spirit, so that when you rise not as a fragile vessel, but as a warrior who has stared down hell and refused to bow. They only see the surface, they only see the version of you that you allow them to glimpse when you step outside. When you show up in the world with that calm, composed face, when you carry yourself like nothing can touch you. Your greatest wars. But what they don't know, the truth that lives beneath the layers of appearances, is that your greatest wars were never fought in public arenas. They were not fought with swords or fists or guns. They were fought in silence, in the depths of your own soul, in the hours when no one was watching, when the whole world was asleep, and you were wide awake, wrestling with shadows that had no name. This is the part of your story nobody writes songs about. No one claps for you here. No one sends you flowers or recognition for surviving the invisible weight. You fought spiritual battles that could not be explained to ordinary minds. You fought doubts that clawed at your mind, whispers that told you that you were unworthy, that you were forgotten, that you were abandoned. And still, you stood. You carried storms inside your chest, and while others were dancing under clear skies, you were surviving hurricanes no one else could feel. Do you know what makes chosen ones so different? Hidden battles. It is not just their gifts, their calling, or their light. It is the endurance forged in the hidden battles, the ability to keep breathing when the air felt like fire, to keep moving when every force of darkness tried to anchor you to despair. You learn to smile in public while bleeding in private. You learn to speak words of life while carrying wounds that no one else could heal. You learn to keep showing up, even when everything inside you screamed to give up. These hidden battles were not accidents. They were divine assignments, carefully allowed by God, so that you could be trained in silence for the mission that would one day be shouted across nations. You see, the chosen are not trained in luxury, they are trained in obscurity. Soldiers are not made on playgrounds. They are made in trenches, and you, beloved soul, were placed in the deepest trenches of human experience, so that when you rise with a strength that no earthly power can crush. There were days when depression tried to suffocate you, nights when anxiety wrapped its claws around your throat and made it hard to breathe, moments when loneliness screamed louder than any crowd, and yet you carried all of it in silence, because you knew that if you spoke it, people wouldn't understand. They would dismiss you, call you dramatic, or even mock the pain that was shaping you into something divine. So you learned the art of quiet endurance. You learned how to carry the weight of universes without collapsing under it. You learned how to turn tears into fuel, and silence into strength. And let's be clear, these were not just personal struggles, these were spiritual wars. Darkness recognized you before you recognized yourself. Demonic forces, generational curses, ancestral patterns, they all tried to chain you before you could even walk in your destiny. They tried to bury you in childhood trauma, in toxic relationships, in betrayals that broke you down to your core. They tried to convince you that you were ordinary, that you had no power, that your life was meaningless. But every time you fought back, not with fists, but with faith, not with rage, but with resilience, not with weapons, but with a spirit that refused to bow. Understand this. The enemy never attacks empty vessels. Darkness does not waste energy on the powerless. If you were fought this hard, it's because you carry that much light. If the hidden battles felt unbearable, it's because the crown you are destined to wear is immeasurable. The greater the opposition, the greater the mission, the heavier the battle, the higher the calling. And while others thought you were just going through life, You were actually moving through battlegrounds that only chosen ones know, loneliness. You fought off the spirit of envy that tried to corrupt your heart. You wrestled with the temptation to give in to bitterness after betrayals. You stood firm when isolation tried to convince you that you were unloved, and through it all, you kept choosing love. You kept choosing faith. Bashir appeared, the severing ni the endet, doubles. You kept choosing hope when every logical reason told you to let go. That is why you are set apart. Let's talk about the loneliness for a moment, because loneliness has been one of your greatest battles, hasn't it? Not just being without people, but being misunderstood even in a crowd. Being the one with a depth that others cannot reach. Carrying a fire that others cannot comprehend. You were never meant to fit in, and that's why you often felt like an outsider in your own family, in your own circle, in your own generation. That wasn't rejection. It was protection. God was keeping you separate because your spirit was too rare to be diluted, too sacred to be wasted in shallow waters. But in those moments of solitude, something happened, and the silence became your teacher. The darkness became your training ground. You discovered God not in the noise of celebration, but in the stillness of your midnight prayers. You discovered your strength not in comfort, but in the breaking of your own heart. You discovered your vision, not in applause, but in the quiet voice of the Spirit that spoke to you when everyone else was asleep. And that is why your hidden battles are not signs of weakness. They are proof that you were handpicked for something eternal. People only see your glow now, but they don't see the fires you walk through to carry it. They admire the wisdom you speak, but they don't know the nights you cried yourself to sleep, asking God why. They admire your strength, but they don't see the fractures in your soul that were stitched together by divine hands. They admire your resilience, but they don't see the endless times you fell to your knees, trembling, thinking you couldn't go on. They see the crown, but they don't see the crucifixion. And here's the divine mystery. Those hidden battles weren't just about you. They were shaping you so that you could be a light for others, so that when someone else comes to you with pain in their eyes, you don't just sympathize, you empathize. You know what it means to feel invisible. You know what it means to fight silent wars, and because of that, you can carry others through storms they thought would destroy them. Your hidden battles gave you spiritual authority. You don't just talk about healing, you embody it. You don't just preach survival, you lived it. So, beloved chosen one, understand this. Your hidden battles were not wasted. Every tear watered your roots. Every sleepless night sharpened your vision. Every silent war fortified your soul. You are not fragile. You are forged. You are not broken. You are rebuilt. You are not weak. You are weaponized. The scars you carry are not signs of defeat. They are the blueprint of your victory. And when the day comes for you to step fully into your purpose, when the world finally sees who you really are, they will wonder how you became so unshakable, so wise, so luminous. Silence. They will think it happened overnight, but you will know it was the hidden battles. It was the years of wrestling in the dark. It was the nights of silent warfare. It was the secret victories no one else applauded that made you the warrior you are today. They thought the case was closed. They thought their silence was proof that they had won. After all, if you didn't fight back in the way they expected, if you didn't spend your nights defending your name, your reputation, your existence, then surely it meant you were defeated. They measured you by worldly standards, money, alliances, influence, perception. They believed that silence equals surrender, and that invisibility equals irrelevance. But chosen ones operate in a realm where those calculations collapse. Your silence wasn't surrender, it was strategy. Your stillness wasn't weakness, it was alignment with a power that doesn't need noise to deliver verdicts. You understood something they never could, that the most powerful trials don't happen in earthly courts, but in the silent courtroom of heaven, where intentions are weighed, actions are recorded, and outcomes are sealed long before they manifest in the physical. The investigators wrote their reports, the lawyers whispered in polished offices, and the gossipers exchanged notes in shadows. But while they scribbled on paper, heaven was etching in stone. Every false word, every malicious action, every trap they set for you was written into a ledger they could never erase. And here's the secret. Heaven doesn't need witnesses, doesn't need cross-examinations, doesn't need lies or spin. Heaven reads energy, and energy doesn't lie. They could deceive people with their stories, manipulate crowds with their charm, and even gaslight themselves into believing they were justified. Their presence delivers balance, not because they themselves seek revenge, but because they are aligned with a universal principle. Whatever is done to them must be answered for. They are karmic accelerators. The energy you throw at them returns faster, sharper, and heavier than when directed at anyone else. They didn't ask for this role. It was given to them the moment they were marked by heaven, the moment they agreed to carry divine purpose on earth. And so when people dig dirt on you, they are not just digging into your past, they are digging their own graves, because every shovel full of malice displaces soil that will one day cover their own arrogance. The PI thought he was investigating you, but in truth, heaven was investigating him. Every page of notes he compiled became evidence not against you, but against his own spirit. Every whisper he recorded, every secret he twisted, every hour he spent searching for flaws in you, was another hour testifying against him. And when he finally walked away, it wasn't just because he couldn't find the dirt. It was because he had stumbled into something far more terrifying. The realization that he was part of a cosmic trial he didn't even know existed. That's why he walked away, shaken, hollow, questioning. Because in the process of exposing you, he exposed himself. And here is the lesson for you, beloved souls watching this. Stop worrying about the dirt others dig up on you. Stop fearing the whispers, the files, the screenshots, the gossip that floats in shadows. When your life is aligned with your higher purpose, nothing they find can stick, because truth always outshines manipulation. They can spend years chasing your downfall, but the more they search, the more they end up testifying to your strength. Your light will expose their intentions before their lies ever expose you. So I say this with all conviction. Walk boldly, live unapologetically. Stop shrinking to make others comfortable with their investigations, their suspicions, or their doubts. You don't need to defend yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Let your fruit speak. Let your spirit testify. Let your life be the loudest evidence. And so, beloved, as you leave this message today, remember this: you are not defined by the dirt others dig up. You are defined by the light you carry, the truth you walk in, and the destiny you embody. They can investigate, but they cannot infiltrate. They can study you, but they cannot stop you. And when the noise fades, your purpose will still stand. This has been Rise and Shine. If this message touched something sacred within you, if you felt that quiet stirring in your soul, then consider this your sign. You are not here by accident. You were meant to hear this. Join us on this journey of awakening. Subscribe. Share this with someone who's walking through their own shadows, someone who needs to be reminded that light still lives within them. And remember, your story isn't about what the world uncovers, it's about what you uncover within yourself. It's about what you choose to become. When the noise fades, when the dust settles, when truth is all that remains. Keep rising, keep shining, keep becoming.